This is the Guardroom Podcast, Episode 10. I'm your host, Ben Boyle. This is the second half of our new Aggie officers conversation. I know there's a few of you all out there who are about to commission and hit that first duty station. These recent grads have some awesome insight into life right after you commission, and I definitely got a lot from our chat. In this episode, we talk about active duty life and their lessons learned, even with just a short time on the job. If you haven't listened to the first part, I'd highly recommend going back and at least catching their introductions. I split the last episode's timestamps by ROTC affiliation, and I've done the same here. However, with all the great advice they have to give, I would definitely recommend giving the whole episode a listen. Everyone has valuable things to say regardless of your branch affiliation. With that being said, let's get into the show.
Well, let's move from the ROTC side of things to more of that active duty, the second lieutenant life. One of the questions that I got that I really appreciated was, what did day one look like wherever it was you showed up to? When they tell you, hey, be here at this time, what does that look like when you walk on base and you're like, shoot, I have this shiny bright little bar on my uniform and I have no idea what I'm doing.
I guess I can start with that one. So I don't know if the other branches do this, but for the Navy, I assume it's the same in every branch. When you check into a new command, you're in your like Alpha's uniform, or your service dress. And so first day, actually, I'll go two ways. So unique thing about Navy ROTC, after you commission, you're attached to your ROTC unit. So day one ensigns, actually they gave us day one off, but on Tuesday, day two ensigns, we showed up and we start working for the admin part of the ROTC department. And so you're staying in College Station until you get your orders to go to your next job, which is cool because you're getting paid and you are like working, half days, which is awesome. Also, you don't get time to go spend time with family before you go off to your next assignment. So I guess that's one aspect I thought it was cool. I liked it. You get a little bit of professional development. I think it's helpful. This is going to sound dumb, but like we work the phones. It's kind of helpful to have experience knowing how to professionally answer a phone and talk to someone. So there's that. And then fast forward to your first day checking into the actual unit. The way it works here, your orders are kind of confusing. The way it reads, it says like show up between 7:30 and 16:30. So you think that means you can show up all day. They actually close the doors at 7:30, so you have to be early. So I guess one lesson that I feel like is drilled in you going through college, always be early. 15 minutes early is on time. One of the guys we checked in with, he showed up at like 7:35. He got turned around, had to come back the next day. So I guess just lesson as a second lieutenant or ensign, whatever you are, always show up early, be over prepared. That's something they're really harping on. Again, I haven't actually started anything other than like the in-doc process, but that's definitely a common theme. Be over prepared for everything, always be early, all that kind of stuff. So I do have a couple things when you sent us the questions of like some things that I kind of wanted to talk about that I feel like fall into this category. Checking into a new unit, moving to a new place, you go through this like phase of loneliness that we didn't go through in the Corps. I feel like it's a level of like growing up that we didn't have to experience because you show up to the Corps, you check in, you got 15 of your best friends that you live with for 4 years. There's always someone to do something with. And then you show up to a new unit. Okay, now you have a house off base. You only see these people certain times of the day. You're not seeing the same people every day. And it's a lot harder to really find a group and I think get plugged in. Again, that depends. Everyone's on like very different has had very different experiences in terms of like whatever training command they're checking into. But if you're going to be a Navy pilot, that's what you can kind of expect. It's just a growing phase, I think, that we just didn't get with the Corps. So, but aside from that, checking into your first unit, ask good questions, make sure your uniform is squared away, make sure you look good. That's your first impression on all of those people, the civilian people that work there, your superiors, whoever you're going to talk to, and just be prepared for whatever's going on. When you check in here at Naval Aviation, it's just like an in-doc process for 3 weeks. But I feel like we were pretty prepared coming out of A&M, but I will say I don't think there's any way, like when you park your car, you're walking up to your unit, you just feel like a fish. And I don't think that there's any way to get rid of that feeling. And I think it's a good reminder of like you're back at the bottom of the totem pole. Like whatever happened in college is in the past. You are a second lieutenant ensign, you are the bottom, and it's scary. And I think that it's a good reminder of like that's important, and you're going to continue to be put in those situations in the military, and just get used to being uncomfortable and being scared and not knowing where you're going and looking lost and sticking out in your service dress or whatever it might be.
I liked what you said, back to the bottom of the totem pole, because you commission, you get to wear the bars, and like now all the cadets have to salute you, and then you show up to your unit and you realize those are targets on your shoulders. You have two of them, one here and one here, right on your left and right, and it's a realization that you went from a big fish in a little pond to a small fish in a really big pond, and it's kind of crazy. So for me, we were able to overlap for 2 weeks with the former Gold Bar recruiters. And so we showed up in B's. We didn't show up in our service dress. We just showed up in our blues, short sleeve blues. And they marched us around the whole office. I mean, again, it's we're a GSU, like a geographically separated unit. So we're not on a base. So we're just like in an office building. And so marched us around. I met I guess our shirt wasn't there at the time, or chief, because our chief showed up like 2 days after us. But we met our commander, we met our captains, we met our PA, all the above, and they kind of marched us around. And then that day we got to sit down with the commander. Commander just kind of had his initial expectations with us, what communication he expects. And then we had basically our supervisor was one of the captains, and we kind of had to sit down and talk with him. And then after that, it was just like in processing. At least for Gold Bar recruiting, you don't really start doing the job for the first 2 weeks, because the first week is in processing. Second week is like house hunting / in processing. And then after that, after like another week, you'll go do like a conference with your unit, and then they'll send you off to actually go get trained to do your job. So my first day was pretty much just first impressions, like McMurray said, just like first impressions. And then finding out that trying to get your CAC can actually be really painful, especially when Deers doesn't want to update your stuff and go back multiple times, and now they won't let you on base because your CAC doesn't work, and all the above. It was funny because I still have my like dependent CAC, not my dependent CAC, my dependent like military ID, and like my CAC wasn't working because it stopped working, and then it was like trading Pokemon cards. I'm like, okay, try this one, and the gate guard was like so confused. But yeah, that was pretty much my first day. First impressions, show up, trying to go start show up to finance, stuff like that.
I think for me, it's obviously going to depend on like where you're getting stationed, whether that's at an Army base overseas or like here stateside. For me here at 101st, you're going to come in through something called CalSU, a replacement company. Everybody goes through it, whether you're enlisted or you're an officer, whether it's your first duty station or like your seventh. It's about a week long. So they have some cadre there who they're going to take you to SRP, which is like, you'll do your shots, you'll do DNA, what's for all there, you'll do vision, just making sure like they're knocking out all of those for you. And then you'll go update your CAC if you need to be updated, and processing all of your paperwork, like your orders. If you move there and you have the military like move your stuff, you'll like turn in all the receipts, like gas, travel, housing, just so you can get reimbursed. Really get that stuff squared away, so like your unit doesn't have to help you and you're kind of like behind your job. So I was in there for about like a week and a half. I got home when the weather was pretty bad, so things started to get a little bit delayed. And I had a predecessor, just like everybody else kind of does, but he had been gone already for about 3 months at a special where most things like medically is located, which is at Fort Sam Houston down in San Antonio. So he had been gone, and come to find out, there were 2 NCOs running the show. They were playing basically like mommy and daddy of PL and platoon sergeant. And so I really walked into a really big, for lack of a better term, like molehill. And I had to make a mountain out of that molehill. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? When I thought I was going to be able to come in and like take my time. And unfortunately that wasn't the case. First day, it was a 1 week like field op. And I kind of had to make my first impressions out there. Normally for the military though, like you don't walk in your dress uniform. So either your AGSUs or on the dress blues, you'll come in your OCPs, still make sure like they're all tidy and squared away. And yeah, I immediately got taken under the wing of like my PA. He just walked me across the street to the battalion headquarters. And I kid you not, we walked into a very official meeting with like my battalion commander, the battalion command sergeant major, and all these other field grades. And he was like, hey, this is like your new meadow. This is Haile. And we're just like, oh my God, like that's not how it's supposed to be. But it was very I would say like informal, but it was good because I got to go and still be proper and still be welcoming and just kind of explain like where I came from and like what I'm here to do. Normally at other units, you'll have a more formal process of like meeting your chain of command and meeting your platoon. But again, like we went right into the field after that. And yeah, I got to meet my platoon, kind of learn everybody. I would say the best part, and I still do this because there's always something to learn about people, no matter how long you've known them. The most memorable part, I think, for my first week was getting to hear the stories of like all of my medics within my platoon, where they're coming from, because some of them were new, and then what they've done, what they wanted to do, and honestly, just like how they felt in the time. So kind of having that like sensing session with them in the field, which I also had later on when we came out. But I would definitely say it was such a new experience. I really did feel like I was at the bottom of the totem pole. And being quite blunt, those butter bars that you wear, regardless of whatever uniform they're on, like you are a target. Everybody's watching you at any single moment of like what you say, do, or feel. They're always looking at you. But I think that is why I touched on resiliency earlier. Like you just have to keep trucking on. You have to like prove everybody wrong about like, oh, LTs are always lost. LTs are just like, you know, drowning in the sauce. They don't like want to actually be there. Like they're not going to spark any change. You can like definitely flip the script on that. And that is like my goal personally. But what I would tell like the listeners here is just no matter what your unit is like when you show up, just kind of like take control, listen to people around you, see how it is, and then kind of wait, have that little grace period before you kind of start making change. My predecessor, he didn't show up until I think I was about 2.5 months already in the seat. So it was a really fast turnaround of like, hey, we already had 2 senior NCOs running the show. We kind of got to put you in now. Like, and we'll guide you as we go, but you got to be the face for it now. Like, we've been doing this for too long. I was like, okay, sure. Yeah, let's go for it. And when we did have my predecessor finally come back, we probably only had about like a week and a half before he had to go and step into his new role. So it was very much like, okay, these are the things I definitely feel like I've got squared away. These are the things I don't feel as confident on. Let's focus on these. And then we'll go and revisit everything before you have to leave. I'm by no means perfect at my job, but I am confident in the people I lead. And I'm very lucky to have the relationship that I have with them. And I think that will come with time too, for people, regardless of branch and regardless of unit. As long as you put trust in your people and all that you really ask them at the end of the day is like, just meet me halfway. That's like half the battle.
I'm ready to follow Haley. I'm just saying that was motivational.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be at church next Sunday.
I guess this is for Haley specifically. What is the difference between BLOC right out of college versus the other like cadet courses that you go through? And is that just like, all right, you're a cadet again, but this time we're only focusing on what your job is? Or is that like an actual like, hey, you need to step up and be an officer here too?
I have many friends. I'm very well aware of like how certain bullets go, kind of like backtracking of like when you get to go to bullet, right? Because I feel like this impacts your performance. So if you go to bullet kind of straight out the gate within the first 6 months of graduating and commissioning from A&M, that really plays in your favor because yeah, you're not like super fresh out the gate. However, you still remember what it's like to be a cadet. So you still have those values instilled in you. You've had a little bit of time in the real world doing whatever you do. That is your discretion. And you still know like what is expected of you compared to I've had some friends where they have not even gone to their bullets yet. And we're about to come out like a year post grad, which side note, if you have to wait a certain amount of time, I think it's about 2 years, maybe a year and a half from graduating and you haven't gone to bullet, they will reclass you into another branch. That is not your fault. That doesn't mean that you failed. That is the Army failing you because they are backlogged in whatever you branch. So they have to put you somewhere else in these. Just a little tidbit, again, going back and like researching on what you want to branch. But for BLOC, I went in October. So that was around the 6-month mark. And again, I still had the info that I needed and that I wanted. It was a little bit challenging since I had worked in the real world and having to shift that mindset again was really hard. I would say that I did not feel like a cadet. I kind of felt like I had to stand up and prove like, okay, I'm getting evaluated here to not only look good, but I also have to want to learn from others as well. Within my BLOC, I had prior service people. I also had people who never stepped foot in a ROTC a day in their life. Like we had doctors, nurses, we had PAs, dentists who they get recruited in a different way, which is probably like for a different episode, but they get recruited by like Army recruiters coming to them in their workplace and like convincing them to join the Army, basically. So they had never done ROTC. And so you have to work with those kind of people too. And that's where it kind of felt like a cadet again of, oh man, like people of all walks of life. And I feel like I'm at this stage and like they're in this stage. But just like the real world, you're going to meet so many people of so many different demographics and backgrounds that you can play that in your favor of just one, being a good human, and two, trying to like exchange information between each other and learn from each other. I know that in other kind of BLOCs, if you do infantry, it's honestly kind of like go, go, go. Especially if you are not Ranger qualified, because you'll go to IBLOC, which is really long. It's one of the longest BLOCs that you can get. Then they'll slot you immediately for Ranger school. And then if you're not airborne qualified either, after Ranger school, you'll probably have to go to airborne. So you're just in schools for like the first year and a half, which is a lot. And I think that if that turns you off, like if that does not motivate you, or if you're not willing to make that commitment, that branch is probably not for you. For MedServ, we have the shortest BLOC you can get. It's about 2 months. Most of it is in garrison. You do spend 3 weeks in the field, but it's pretty low stress. It's just the basics and you're already prepped beforehand. In terms of feeling like a cadet, it totally depends on that. I would say the BLOC. I'm sure in infantry BLOC, like it probably just felt like a competition instead of just the core.
Good stuff. This one's, I think, probably for Jefferson and Haley. Sarah, not to leave you out, but you're still in the training phase, which I totally get, and I wish I was doing too. But for the two LTs doing actual LT stuff, did you guys have some sort of like observation phase, or maybe a little bit more like self-imposed, like I'm just going to wait and watch things and see how this unit is run before I step in and start making decisions? Or I guess, Haley, you mentioned a little bit just going day one, like, all right, it's time to go. I'm being a leader now. What was that transition like for y'all?
You know, Jefferson talked about it earlier about like working with enlisted, and it's crazy because again, regardless of branch, you're going to come in as a lieutenant and you're in charge of people who are older than you. And I think for me, I don't know if it's because like I'm a woman, like I don't know if it's because like I appear like shorter than my counterparts. These are just examples like I've noticed within my battalion, but I know that like I appear much younger than the people that I lead. And so with that, like that was something that I was really worried about, because here I am like leading like 35-year-old medics. And then is there going to be that equal exchange of like information and expectations within each other? So I was really nervous coming in, but I think what really helped was just having that first impression with them and like really hearing their stories. I think that they were kind of touched a little bit that somebody actually cared enough to ask and take the time out of the day to be like, how are you doing? Or like, how did you end up here? You know, and like, where do you want to go to next? Or it's like, is the Army like long-term for you? Or what can I do to like help you get there? An observation phase, I would say, yes, I was being observed probably by like my company commander, because I think he was worried since my predecessor wasn't there that I didn't really have someone to fall back on. I mentioned earlier, I had the PA kind of took me under his wings, and my platoon sergeant really stepped up as well, which I'm so fortunate for. Shout out to Hamilton. I'm actually re-enlisting him tomorrow. But so with that, I think you're always being observed though, even if it's not on paper, and even if someone's not saying it, when you wear the butter bars, someone's still watching you. So for me, it was a lot of pressure because again, I didn't know what to expect.
So as I said, I overlapped with the 2 gold bars for 2 weeks. It was a really weird start. It was probably the most Air Force possible start you ever could. So first week was basically sitting around trying to in process. Let's see, first 2, second, like really the next 2 weeks, they were like, okay, house hunting leave. And we were like, we have houses. And they were like, yes, but you're no help around here. Please just get out of our hair for 2 weeks. And we're like, okay, cool. Then we come back and we had our squadron semi-annual training conference. This is where it got really Air Force. My first TDY was to the Great Wolf Lodge. If you don't know what that is, it's like a very childlike based hotel with a water park on the inside of it. Because for the semi-annual conference, they try to do something where like the Air Force is already paying for it and you can bring your families. So it's just our recruiters work really, really hard. I have so much respect for them. They work a crazy job. And so it just kind of gives them something that they kind of bring their families to. So I'm like, this random second lieutenant in the Great Wolf. It was weird. Okay. And then after that, the next week I went straight to training. And so we went at San Antonio and did a lot of the schoolhouse recruiters out there. And then ROTC, commander type people who are, looking over that and looking over applications. So we did that for 2 weeks. And then after that, like we got back and we were pretty much on. It was like, okay, it's August now. You have to get this many events in this month, go make it happen. And it was really weird because like no schools had started yet. So it was like trying to go in and talk to counselors. Counselors weren't even there. In this job, it's like, because someone said something that was really funny. They're like, GBR stands for something along the lines of like grit, boldness, and rejection. Because like it's like showing up to these schools and trying to like get someone to talk to you, trying to talk to someone, try to talk to what we call influencers, right? People who influence someone in their path of where they'll go in future in life. So that maybe a counselor, maybe a teacher, maybe a coach. And so that was really weird. So at that point, it was pretty much like you're on your own. You make your entire own schedule. And you choose where you go, when you go. If you want to go out and go TDY 3 hours away, go TDY 3 hours away. It's a very strange job. And that's why I said, okay, Haley's going to be a lot more conventional than mine. I mean, there was kind of an observation phase, but we weren't actually observing the job. So when it came to like doing our actual job, it was pretty much training and then jump straight into it. So lots of just learning by mistakes, learning what works. I found out that like my official title is basically a scholarship liaison and gold bar recruiter. And so I don't shy away from recruiter because I don't want to make it sound like recruiter sounds dirty. A lot of academy people kind of do that. They're like, oh, I'm academy admissions. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll say like, hey, I'm a scholarship advisor for ROTC. I'm a gold bar recruiter. I'll say that. Because often I'll go to schools, especially I'll go to private schools, and they'll see me and be like, oh, sorry, we don't do military. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't think you understand. Like I'm a scholarship advisor for full rides to basically any public or private university you can think of. And so kind of being able to set the tone there was super important. But so a lot of learning by mistakes, got a lot of like stink eyes, especially in DC. Had people that just didn't even know what it was. That blew my mind. Just lots of showing up. Like I would just get knots in my stomach. I'm like, I have to get out of my GOV and go walk into the school, and it might be awful, it might be great. And then you just did that on repeat for months until like suddenly like you just did not care. That was mine. Mine's very weirdly different. And then just also like it was weird the first time I had to do like a swear in. It was pretty much right after I got back from training, and they're like, hey, LT, you need to do the swear in. And I'm like nervous, making sure I have it memorized because I'm like, I'm not reading off of something that's really lame. I should be able to know this, It was just like I was super nervous. I think I was like more nervous than the candidate I was swearing in. But it was just a weird moment being like, I just joined the Air Force and now I am swearing people into the Air Force. Very humbling.
But before we move on to the like lighter end wrapping up questions, do y'all have any more second lieutenant tidbits or knowledge bombs you want to drop on guys? And it doesn't even have to be anything related to this. It could totally be A&M experience or just, hey, I have a platform and I want to use it because I trust y'all like that. Jefferson, I see your hand and I see how badly you want to say something.
Haley kind of already said this. She's talked about like leading into her platoon sergeant. Your NCOs are some of the most phenomenal, fantastic people ever. Like I like the officers at my squadron, but I freaking would live and die for my NCOs. I'm talking about, I have, especially in recruiting, it's weird. Like we have, my chief is a career recruiter. My first sergeant is a freaking EOD bomb tech. Like I can't make this up. My pro soup is also a career recruiter, and like some of the most phenomenal people ever that have crazy experience. And it's kind of, that's where I get the one of how to interact with enlisted. It's kind of like if they told me, hey, LT, you need to jump, I'm jumping, like, but it's like, it's so cool the way that they can professionally kind of interact with you and take you along. And, the job of a senior NCO, technically, at least in the Air Force, is to mentor the CGOs, right? And so really going in there and trying to ask good questions. And like, I would literally, like anytime I'm in the squadron office, I'm like, okay, I need to think of a good question to ask for them because they're just like a bank of information. So leaning on your NCOs and, respecting the hell out of them.
I think for me, like, I definitely agree with Jefferson about that. Like, my NCOs, I would take a bullet for like any single day or night. Like you ask me when, it could be 2 a.m. I'd be like, yep, let's go. And they've earned that also within trusting me to also like lead them as well. I think that that was something I told them from day one. I kind of sat them all down in a little group and I said, I know that you don't know me and I don't really know you guys, but all I can ask is at the end of the day, like, please just meet me in the middle and I'll do that for you. I don't mind looking like an idiot. I still say this to this day. I said it last week during our safety brief for the weekend. I don't care about looking stupid. I don't care about like messing up in terms of like my bosses, right? All of the field grades. Because at the end of the day, like as long as my people are squared away, my people are doing good, they're not in harm's way, and they're learning in their own rights, then like that's all that matters. And I will go and I will take the vote for them any single day. And I think that that is something that I would pass on to the listeners. You're going to mess up. You're going to look stupid time and time and time and time again. Doesn't even matter if you're a lieutenant. That happens to like majors. It happens to lieutenant colonels, like in my battalion. Everybody messes up. It's just the name of the game. And just like we say in the Corps, the military in itself can be a game too. You just got to play it right and you just got to be a sponge. Always be a sponge. Again, doesn't matter what rank you end up being. Doesn't even matter what job or what unit. I would say just consistently stay a sponge. I can't tell you how many times where like I've seen people some become so like stringent on the fact of like, oh, I'm this rank. Like I don't need to go and learn from other people anymore, especially NCOs. No, they are a bank of information, kind of like what Jefferson mentioned, and they're always willing to help you. And they know that officers get lost a lot on things, and they have that information to help fill in the gaps. So I think the last thing I'd probably say is like take the hard jobs, take the really high up tempo duty stations. Again, I'm just speaking from the Army side of it. I don't regret at all choosing the duty station I'm at. And it is one of 3 most high up tempo units you can get right now in the entire United States. And it is crazy. I work extremely long hours and I have really difficult tasks, but the people make it worth it. The job is so fulfilling in that fact. And I don't regret it at all. So I would say push yourself now before you can't push yourself in life anymore, even though you should be able to. But that just take those really intimidating opportunities. It will make you so much stronger and confident.
I kind of got 2 things. Going back to the kind of beginning of the conversation, right? Like, how do you set yourself apart? How do you get the job you want? I think that at least the 3 of us, Jefferson and Haley and stuff, we're able to sit here and like talk about we got the jobs we wanted, and we're excited for that. But at the end of the day, it's a privilege to serve. And regardless of what job you put into, you worked really hard to get to that job, and people around you would do anything to be in your position, regardless of if you got your last choice. And I think it's really easy to forget that, especially when you're in your A&M bubble. But coming here, like, it is so humbling to know that, like, yes, I, worked hard, whatever, got the job I wanted, but like the people that have gone through this schoolhouse, the people that have gone through this base, like whatever it might be, maybe they didn't want that job, but they were officers in the United States Navy or the Coast Guard or the Marine Corps or Army, Air Force, whatever it is. That in itself is a huge accomplishment. And I think as long as you are remembering that and like the privilege it is to be able to serve and to be able to be an officer, whatever it might be, that will kind of like ground you as you go through, like, okay, I have to do this really scary thing. I have to go check into this unit. I have this task that I'm not prepared for, whatever it might be. But I know I worked really hard to get here, and like it's a privilege to be here, so I'm going to do my best because I know there's people that would do anything to be in my shoes. So I think that's just kind of important to keep in the back of your mind as you go through whatever schoolhouse. Second thing, completely random, but the Military Money Manual. It is an awesome free resource. The guy, he has a book and a podcast and a website. It's called the Military Money Manual. I think it's written by 2 Air Force captains or majors, and they break down everything financially of like how you should be investing your money, what it means to be investing, what credit cards you should be getting, how to manage the different credit cards, your Roth IRA, TSP, the new retirement system, all of that stuff, how to like steward your money well, because that's a big jump, going from your monthly stipend, if you have that, up to second lieutenant ensign pay. Military Money Manual. It is awesome free resource. Pass it on.
Yeah, I'd be racking in those credit card points. Seriously, I love Military Money Manual. I'll listen to it sometimes when I'm driving. I do tons of driving, and I'm like, my goal was to have like every free Amex card in the book, have every single level of Hilton honors, everything. Yep.
Thanks, guys. All right, finishing up with the fun questions. Somebody asked this one, and I thought it was funny because I'm gonna have to struggle with this one myself. But did you guys buy the second lieutenant truck? Okay, Jefferson, a new car counts. You got it. Clue me in, dude.
Yeah, but I got a new car after my car got stolen because welcome to Washington, D.C. Yeah, my car got stolen, aka Kia Boys trend. Apparently, my 2016 Hyundai Tucson did not have an engine immobilizer, so they just cracked open the car and just crank turned that engine and drove off with it. But I did get a pretty sweet Jeep Wrangler after, so I'm like, kind of was, yeah. It was forced, okay? It was forced.
Okay, you've got a good reason. You get a pass on that one.
So in terms of like the second lieutenant, like Tacoma, that's basically what I'm this year. I didn't know that was a thing until getting to my duty station. Because all of the lieutenants like had their like cars and their trucks like parked along one side of the headquarters. And I was like, is this like a car show or something? I'm like, no, it's all the LTs. That's how you can tell. And I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. I heard about like the Dodge Charger stuff, but I didn't know that for second lieutenants there was like the equivalent. So that was kind of like new culture shock for me. But for me, I got a dog, which I feel like long term will probably be more expensive than a car if she outlives like a normal car payment. But yeah, super expensive, super well worth it though. I love her to death, but yeah, that was probably my investment.
We're going to talk about expensive things. So my other expensive thing that I did was I got a wife, so I'm getting married in June. So that engagement ring, good engagement ring. So, but a dog, dog, wife.
No, I think Jefferson beats us. No, I think my biggest piece of advice is like, it's so tempting. Like when you come out of the Corps and you're like, oh my God, I can like get a new car, I can get a dog, or I can do this or do that. I think use the money manual that like Maria like brought up. That's like step number one. Like just be upfront with like what you value in terms of like purchasing. If you find yourself to be a high maintenance person and you need all the bougie products, maybe you shouldn't go and get a new car. Or maybe you should go and reassess like your purchases that you're already doing already. For high up tempo jobs or like units. Is it hard for me sometimes with my dog? Yes, absolutely. And especially because I live alone. But if you're willing to handle it and you're willing to put in the time and energy to make that time management commitment, then it is possible. Just make sure at the end of the day, this is a living, breathing like thing that depends on you. So there you go, Boyle.
You know what? That's a good answer. The tradition on the podcast is we ended out with the last question. If you got to talk to yourself on day one of FOW, like not generic fish in the Corps, generic you, Fish Thomas, Fish McMurray, Fish Flores, they're walking into FOW day one, what piece of advice are you giving them for their Corps experience for the next couple of years?
I can go first. Mine's probably not going to be very good. I would say, like Fish McMurray specifically, but anyone, run more. That is like one of the few graded. So I say that kind of as a joke, but also like that's like a huge deficiency of mine. So maybe if Fish McMurray would have ran a little bit more, would have had a better 4 years. But also I feel like making the most of the Corps, putting yourself out there and like learning as much as you can. And it's unfortunate because it's the cycle, right? Like you don't realize until you're out of it, like, oh man, I should have taken advantage of that opportunity more. I wish I would have taken my classes a little more serious or whatever. Really just like making the most of the Corps and college and learning the most that you can, and not getting caught up in the games, not getting caught up in having a million leadership positions and then failing all your classes, stuff like. I feel like any fish would it would be good to, I guess, kind of heed that advice. Like you're a student and you're a cadet, so those should be your two priorities. And maybe you don't need to join that extra club, or maybe you don't need to whatever extra things that take your energy off of your plate for doing the best that you can in your leadership position and doing the best you can in your classes.
I would say just so the Corps experience, your Fish Buddy class is the first opportunity you're ever going to get to lead. And if you want to join the military, your job is going to be to lead, right? And so that is your job. That is what you're preparing for. So what I would tell Fish Thomas, first I'd start with show up and shut up. I talked a lot with buddies. I talked over my buddies. I kind of was concerned more about performance of myself rather than performance for the sake of others. And I was just, it's super easy when you're, getting sharked by upperclassmen to think, okay, I need to get my stuff together. But it's much more motivating in any situation to go, no, I'm going to do better for the sake of others. And I kind of got that for sure. I think everyone gets definitely at least a bit of that for sure. Unless you have some really strangely disconnected freshmen, just because the core experience is really cool of getting the, work for your buddies, but really like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of people that can say like, oh yeah, I'm doing it for my buddies. I'm like, are you though? Like, are you really trying to do it for, other reasons? And so I just show up and shut up, analyze the situation first and then speak, whether it's in interactions with your upperclassmen or with buddies or just like, and then, yeah, I would just say like, this never really clicked until I took the position as core chaplain is like, your goal should be just, and that will get you really far. It's not at the sacrifice of your own training because your training has to be up to par so you can help other people or else you're just going to make yourself a second. And so that's kind of, I just shut up and just prepare yourself for the sake of others, not for just your own, selfish gain.
This is always such like an intimidating question to answer because I think that as time moves on, there are probably like more things that I would tell like Fish Flores. And it makes me like sad realizing how much like I guess Anna like passed by for me personally. But I think for Fish Flores, I would probably tell her like 2 or 3 things. One would be like stand up for yourself. I know that there were many of times where I let myself like get walked all over within the core and like within ROTC and just like in general. Those things like wouldn't fly now, but that comes with time, that comes with exposure, that comes with trial and error. And I know that sometimes it's hard to get that in the core because to be blunt, it is a sheltered experience at times. So it's probably easy to say that now as like post-grad in the military, and some freshmen might hear this and be like, oh yeah, right, whatever, women, like it's so easy to say that. But I would say definitely stand up for yourself, whether that be in your own buddy class, whether that be when you find yourself like in really odd situations. As long as you're not harming yourself or others and you feel confident in a decision, run with it. And if you're wrong, guess what? That's trial and error. That's how life works. So I would say that. I would say manage your time wisely because you are you're way more capable than you think. And I know when I was a freshman, I was really struggling, like taking the bare minimum classes. And I was in fish drill team and I just didn't know what this was like, and I wasn't even from Texas. My first day in the state of Texas was FOW day 1. So like even learning now, I was like, oh my God, I'm going through culture shocks in every single aspect of my life 24/7. You are so like more capable than you will ever imagine. Even when you get out of A&M, like keep pushing yourself because you're going to expand upon so many opportunities and memories. It's going to drive you insane when you look back on it. But then you're like, wow, I prepared myself well far in advance. And A&M has the resources and the capability and the people to put you on that pedestal to put you towards success. So I would definitely say that, and also in tandem, like use A&M because A&M has all the answers for you and all the opportunities. You just have to go out for it. Someone can't hold your hand when you do that.
But I think lastly, have fun. I know that McMurray and like Jefferson touched on this, but have so much fun. No one really asks like where I went to school when I go to work every day. Unless like it was an introduction and someone just so happened to ask me in passing. But no one cares about what I studied. No one cares about where I'm in school. Enjoy it so much because I miss it. I miss it every single day. And I'm so blessed that I worked my butt off to get to A&M to be able to experience the memories that I had. But as a freshman, it's so going to fly by. And your chain of command is probably telling you that like right now, whenever you do your white belt mentoring. But it really does fly by. And then when you're like knee deep in like water in the field and you're miserable when it's 15-degree weather, you're like, man, I wish that I was in like my little raft right now, or I wish that I was. It flies by 100%. So definitely cherish it, take photos, take videos, go to the events that seem like headaches because when you look back, it wasn't a headache. And that's it.
Well, guys, thanks so much for spending some time with me, talk about second lieutenant life. As somebody who's graduating and commissioning and moving on to my own military experience here in less than a month. This was a good peer-to-peer conversation, getting some insight on what to expect. And if nobody else listens to this podcast, I'm glad that I got something out of it. So I appreciate y'all's time and the effort that you put into being good leaders and being good ags and helping me out with this. Thanks, y'all.